Central High School, Louisville's only all-black high school, has held a unique position in Louisville history. It was also uniquely affected by the process of desegregation because of its position. As far as makeup of the student body, not much changed for Central in the initial stage of desegregation. During this period of voluntary desegregation, only one white student, Bertie McHugh, ever chose to attend Central. Her transfer to Central went mostly unnoticed because of contemporary ideas about who was responsible for desegregation, but her commitment to the cause of desegregation should not be overlooked today. In the years prior to desegregation, Central High School stood as a point of pride in the local African American community. It seemed that everyone had a connection to the school, either having attended it themselves or having a child or friend who did. The whole community turned out for football and basketball games. They were a major source of entertainment. Then, in 1954, the U.S. Supreme Court passed the landmark case Brown v. Board of Education. For Kentucky and the 16 other states who still had segregated school systems, this meant integration would need to occur. It wasn't until the 1956-57 school year that Louisville enacted its desegregation policy, lauding it as a success within the first semester because of the smooth transition. The reason for this smooth transition quickly became clear, however. This desegregation was being done on a voluntary basis, and very little actually changed. And no white students chose to attend Central. That is, until 1961. Enter Bertie McHugh, an A's and B's student who, in the middle of her junior year, decided to transfer to Central from DuPont Manual High School. She was an active participant in the civil rights movement, being both arrested and fined for her participation over the years. She organized and participated in a number of protests and came from a family that moved into a predominantly black neighborhood to show their support for integration. And seemingly, no one made much of a fuss over Bertie either. She already knew other students at Central through her integration work, and she said that everyone treated her normally. In reality, Central's principal, Atwood Wilson, went to great lengths to vet Bertie before admitting her, having already turned away previous white applicants for fear that they would cause trouble. In the end, he determined she would be more of an asset than a risk, though he still waited more than 2 months before revealing her acceptance. There was no great uproar from the community over her transfer, and only a few short paragraphs were published about it in the Career Journal, hidden at the end of an article about a protest. Louisville's African-American newspaper, the Louisville Defender, covered these protests extensively, but never once mentioned Bertie's attendance at Central, despite the fact that she is included in a front-page image from these protests. This silence from the media can be explained by the way integration was being framed at the time. The black community believed Central was a superior school, and when desegregation was first discussed, its principal stated nonchalantly that white students would be allowed to attend should they choose to, as if this would have always been the case if not for state legislation that made integrated schools illegal. Instead, this pointed the blame at white schools that had been excluding black students. They were the ones who were flawed, and they were the ones that needed to change. Conversely, white citizens saw desegregation as an invasion of their space. If a white student wanted to attend Central, that was her choice. White citizens were more concerned about the way desegregation would affect them. Bertie went on to attend Fisk University, a historically black university, and upon her graduation, Central returned to being an all-black school and remained that way for many years. In fact, Bertie was the only white student to ever choose to transfer to Central. It took busing policies in 1975 before any other white student attended. To this day, Central remains the Louisville high school with the highest black enrollment at just over 77%, as a result of a lawsuit in the late 90s that released it from racial quotas on the grounds of its history. Integration can be seen to have permanently damaged Central's important role in the black community, though that was the result of black students being bused elsewhere, not white students being bused in. While Bertie's attendance at Central did not significantly impact the school's racial makeup, it is still worthy of note as a milestone in the history of this Louisville landmark.